LaserDicks, you sexy motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of LaserDicks.
Ooh.
I'm Chris. You'll recognize my voice from the Geek Out show Catching Up with Sam, Chris, Jake, and Josh. And to my right, I have my lovely co-host for this show.
Oh, this is Ken. I'm so flattered.
Yeah, and so basically, anyone that's heard me on Catching Up has heard me mention at least once, probably a million times, about how I'm into collecting Laserdiscs, and my hetero life mate here, within the Laserdisc community, we knew each other sort of. Like, I knew your sister for I've known her for a couple years, and then when I moved back from New York, last year, 2 years ago, we met through her.
Yeah, exactly. I started coming to the bar.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, you need more of a social life. Please come out to the bar.
Yeah, and I don't even know how. I think maybe somebody heard that we both like Laserdiscs, so they just kind of like mashed our heads together, and they're like, you'll be friends. Yeah. And I feel like that was the first thing that we ever really talked about together.
No, exactly, because nobody else in our immediate circle really was into it.
We're lucky if people, I mean, by now they do, but at the time we were lucky if people knew what Laserdiscs were.
Exactly, but now we've bashed it over their heads often enough.
Yes. just like forcing them, like, look at how cool Laserdiscs are.
It's a forgotten medium, enjoy it.
Yeah. And then like that episode of Regular Show came out, and then like all of my friends sent me a link to watch it, and I didn't watch it for like a year.
Oh my God.
But I have seen it. People can stop sending me links to it. It was fun.
Did you see the part 2?
I did not see the part 2. So okay,
everyone
send me links to part 2, but you don't need to send me links to part 1.
Okay, all right.
And actually, from that, we actually, you and I have plans to make like a little care package of Laserdiscs to send to the Regular Show guys.
Exactly,
right?
Like a short story of it is at New York Comic Con. I went into the panel. And one of my questions was, hey, you made this. I was the Regular Show panel, and I was like, hey, you made this episode about Laserdisc. Do you want some? I mean, do you have Laserdisc? Oh, I have the player, but I just don't have any of the discs. So I thought, well, hey, let's get something together. And I think Blade Runner was kind of like
that was like the one that we were both like, they're gonna want Blade Runner.
Yeah,
especially since go ahead.
Well, yeah, it looks like Blade Runner. The disc in the episode, it looks like a mock of Blade Runner. So.
Yeah, kind of a hodgepodge of a whole bunch of different sci-fi tropes when they show clips from the thing. But like, definitely, it seems like Blade Runner is kind of like the template.
Exactly
for what they chose,
especially like they're making reference to the fact it's like director's cut, and there's so many, like 13 seconds of unaired.
Yeah, and actually, oddly enough, right around that time, I had bought my second copy of Blade Runner because I now have 2 copies of Blade Runner on Laserdisc. I have the quote unquote unauthorized director's cut.
Oh my God!
Because that we can do a whole episode on Blade Runner, and we probably will.
We should.
But it has a lot of laser rot on it, which we can get into at some other point as well. But basically, it makes the movie skip. Very short and sweet version of it.
It's an organic life form.
Yeah. So I wanted to buy a different version, and I was like, oh, the Criterion Collection. Oh, Criterion's great. That's probably going to be like the best version of it that I can get. And I buy it, and it's the fucking international cut of it, which, in my opinion, the second worst version of Blade Runner, the worst being the U.S. print of it. Both of them were like the original releases. One, naturally, you can guess by the title, was the domestic, the U.S. release. Yeah. The other one, the international release. And the only difference between the two of them is about 13 seconds of of violence.
I'm rolling my eyes.
Yeah, they cut out 13, or like maybe not even that much, but like they basically the international version is a little bit more violent.
Oh, yeah.
Both of them have that terrible Harrison Ford voiceover. Not that Harrison Ford is terrible, but that voiceover is terrible. And like there's conjecture, maybe not conjecture, but there's rumors that it was intentionally bad because Harrison Ford was like, fuck this.
We've already done this movie. Why do we need to do it again?
And it didn't need a voiceover.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, we could have a whole episode on Blade Runner, even though I think there's only 2 maybe 3 different releases on Laserdisc, even though there's like 5 different cuts of that movie. But that's because the subsequent ones were done after Laserdisc died.
I mean, you can still talk about it. You can make a Blade Runner episode with the focus.
Yeah, we could. That's what I'm saying. We could. Look for it in like, a while. Because we already have a couple episodes planned out today. But, so, today I thought, since this is our first episode, just kind of like a nice, easy, getting to know you. Maybe, for our listeners out there who don't know much about Laserdiscs, just kind of giving an informal welcome to what it is. Because we're posting these, like side episodes, as we're kind of calling them, on our main podcast feed. So everyone who subscribes to Geek Out is going to at least have the opportunity to listen to this one. They might skip it, and that'd be rude.
But see, now you're putting me under a lot of pressure. There could be people.
Yeah.
There could be people that listen to this.
There's like 7 people that listen to it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So first, I'm going to go ahead and just pose a question to you, and then I'll answer it myself afterwards. But why Laserdiscs? Huh? What's the point? It died over 10 years ago.
Well, I guess for me, it's always been that kind of collectible type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always had weird collections.
Mm-hmm.
Started out kind of with like coins and like badges, but I think my introduction kind of came to like I was working at H.H. Gregg, which is an appliance and electronics store.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a Best Buy kind of.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's almost exactly like a Best Buy, except
I remember the first one they put in, I was like, that's a weird way to spell Best Buy.
Yeah, exactly. I looked at it, I thought like instead of H.H. Gregg, I thought it had egg in the title, so it was like a grocery store. No, it was weird. Greatly mistaken.
Or Egghead Software.
Exactly. But so I worked there, and I actually went over to the home theater side and started working with a colleague of mine named, his name's Randy. And he's an older...
we can change his name for legal purposes.
But so he actually has been in the home theater business for quite some time. He actually owned his own Laserdisc store way back in the day. He actually had a video.
Was it around here? Because when I grew up, there was this great Laserdisc store in Springfield. It would be pretty funny if like that was like the connection, but like a deeper connection between the two of us, because that was the when I get into like my backstory with Laserdiscs, we'll talk about it. But like there was this great Laserdisc store in Springfield that I used to go to all the time.
I'll have to ask him. I'm not exactly sure where it was, but he does have some footage of somebody had a home movie of like him at Black Friday, like selling Laserdiscs left and right, and it's just awesome. And he had hair back then, which was cool. Whoa. But what the sad thing was, Laserdisc eventually stopped coming out, so the store went out of business. But he had a lot of merchandise left over, so he kept it at his house.
Right.
This guy has like regular, like Blockbuster style shelving stuff for Laserdisc.
Like he probably just took the shelving home.
Yeah, exactly.
As well as the movies.
Exactly. So he's got like, at least 1,000 of these things just in his house. I've shown you pictures.
Yeah.
Eventually you'll have to come over. But he
might just break in and take everything.
Exactly. I've told him, like, if you ever kick the bucket, all this is mine. You hope you realize. There's no
whether it's in the will or not.
Yes. Yeah. I will talk to your wife and your children and be like, y'all don't want it. I want it.
Clearly.
Let's make this happen.
Yeah.
But so like I watched his pets a couple times, and then like I watched a couple Laserdiscs on my own, because he's got like 5 different players at his house, all the Pioneer Elite creme de la creme.
That's the one I want.
Exactly, the like $1,000.
Yeah.
But he's got
still
still $1,000.
You look at it on eBay, it's still like 900 something, and then like $100 shipping.
Oh my God, yeah. But so he's got all these. So I watched a couple. Like I watched I think the very first one that I picked up was old childhood classics of mine. So I watched like Beauty and the Beast, and I watched Fievel, American Tail.
Yeah.
Not
Fievel Goes West.
Well, I did watch that separately.
Okay.
Yeah, because
personally, my favorite of the two. There are more, aren't there? By now,
there's a few, but it's like direct to video.
Yeah. Well, it's like Land Before Time. They have like 20 of them.
Exactly.
The first one's the only one that matters.
Exactly. But so I watched them, and I was floored by the fact that like, hey, there's this like mid-step. It's not a VHS. It's not a DVD, and it was like the precursor to.
It was almost a trip.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa, what's this?
Like where you don't actually like fall, but your like leg just kind of like doesn't do the right thing, and instead of bending your knee forward, it just locks the knee, and you're like, ugh!
And then some guy over out the side says, "Hey, I saw that."
Yeah.
Feel embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect metaphor for Laserdisc. We love this technology, but we make fun of it.
Oh, exactly. But yeah, it was just I was floored by the fact you could do frame by frame. There was chapters, different audio. Like that was my introduction.
Yeah, yeah. And what's really cool is this is I want to say almost about like 15 years. Like they created this technology for the Laserdisc 10 to 15 years before DVDs were coming out.
Yeah.
So like me growing up with it, like I was prepared for chapters.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that DVDs threw at me was menus.
What is this? It's like a computer.
Exactly. But yeah, so you were hanging out watching these classics.
Yeah, and just like I was just
chilling
amazed.
out, having a good time.
Exactly, you know, with some buds, get some natty light.
Yeah. Broing out
with the bros. Let's play some GameCube, bro.
Yeah. Where's Chad?
Where's Chad?
Why are the police here?
They should be inside.
they should be out there getting criminals. Anyway.
But no, see, so like I just thought it was like this great media that I had no idea. I think I've heard about it, but I've never really like watched any because in my house VHS was king. You know, Disney, like
clamshell boxes.
Oh, exactly. We had clamshells upon clamshells. We had the Disney sing-along VHSs. That's how.
Wow.
That's how Disney we were.
I never even had those.
See,
I just had the main releases.
I'm a top collar nerd right there.
Right. Yeah.
Disney nerd.
There you go. But you got me.
But I think that's pretty much my story of my introduction there.
Yeah. For me, my dad was actually gung-ho Laserdiscs right from the get-go. So we have a Laserdisc player, and it's still the one that I use today, straight up from the 80s. I think it was, I looked it up a while ago. I want to say it's like from 88, 89-ish. But it's one of the pioneers, so straight from the people that invented the technology. And we just, like, for as far back as I can remember, we had Laserdiscs in the house, and I actually, I like to refer to them as the first 10. For me, it's like the Bill of Rights of Laserdiscs.
Oh my.
But so I had the original Tim Burton Batman.
Ooh.
I had the first Ghostbusters, the Yellow Submarine, the Beatles movie cartoon, and a Mamas and the Papas concert. Just one of those like concert movies.
Okay.
And then a smattering of the Sean Connery and Roger Moore James Bond movies.
Oh my god!
And I had those up until like I don't know, about 2010. Like those were the Laserdiscs that I had. And then something happened in the late aughts, if I may call them.
What?
The decade, the first decade of the 2000s.
Oh, okay.
The aughts, because aught is a word for zero.
Okay.
In the late aughts, I got really disgruntled as a Star Wars fan that I could not watch the original cut of Star Wars in widescreen, because this was right around the time that the DVDs came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, cool, I'm gonna buy it on DVD so I can finally watch Star Wars in widescreen, because up until this point I had only been watching my VHSs.
Exactly.
My original VHSs, they're beautiful, I love them, but they're not widescreen.
Exactly.
So I picked up the first DVDs that were printed out, and they were the special editions, and I was so upset because I'm one of those douchebags. I hate the special editions.
I mean, they look out of place,
The only I can tolerate Empire Strikes Back special edition, because they didn't really do anything to that one, except like the only thing that's really noticeable is Bespin, the Cloud City. But most of those corrections, most of those were expanded. They weren't altering, they weren't ruining things. Like, it was fine. If you want to get nitpicky, some of the coloration is kind of weird. Some people are a little too pink. And stuff like that. But that could be a different episode all by itself. So I started researching different releases of Star Wars, and I found the Harmy's despecialized editions, which, if you guys don't know anything about that, look it up. It's really cool. This dude in like Switzerland or something like that went through and re-edited the Blu-rays and cleaned them up, and basically made almost Blu-ray quality versions of the original trilogy unaltered, to the best of his abilities, and it's really cool. And then, what is it? So I found that. No, I knew about the VHSs, and like they made DVDs of the unaltered versions, but in like doing my research, I found out that was just a digitization of the Laserdisc print, and I was like, Laserdisc?
What is this mysterious thing?
I mean, I know what a Laserdisc is, but I had no idea Star Wars was on Laserdisc.
Uh-oh. So
I looked it up on eBay, found it, and bought it, and boom, there it is. And so, but yeah, so I've gotten completely off track because I just started doing the whole episode that we had talked about doing ahead of time. I wasn't supposed to bring that up until way later. The reason why Laserdisc is mostly nostalgia for me.
Oh, all right. I mean, like, but you got a good history.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You learned something today.
Exactly. I went over like 15 years of my life in like 5 minutes. Anyway, so.
But I guess that segues into collecting. Like that was your first collection.
Exactly. Like, so I mentioned those first 10 that I had. Mm-hmm. And those were like the first movies that I ever watched on Laserdisc. And you mentioned, the first ones that you saw at your friend's house. Mm-hmm. Star Wars was the gateway for me for collecting. Mm-hmm. Because of that, I just kind of got the bug to I was like, this is a piece of history right here.
Oh, exactly.
And kind of like the same thing with you, like just the collector in me.
Yeah.
Because I've always been a bit of a collector, especially with like comic books.
Oh, yeah.
And movies. So I don't know why it took so long for me to be like, Laserdisc collection. So then I started just looking for other bits of nostalgia for me. Mm-hmm. And I got Michael Jackson's Thriller, or the making of Thriller. Yeah, it's really good. Basically, the first 15 minutes is the 15-minute long music video for Thriller.
Okay.
And then there's a 45-minute making of documentary with John Landis and Michael Jackson talking about the production. And it's awesome.
Oh my God.
I highly recommend everyone check it out. And then I also picked up Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, which is one half just kind of like celebration of Michael Jackson's career. Mm-hmm. And it works perfectly because it's enough to fill up the first side of the Laserdisc. Second side of the Laserdisc is the half-hour long, or no, is it longer? Shorter? It's around half-hour, 45 minute.
Adequate length.
Yeah, it's a long music video for Smooth Criminal. Like, it's the full-length Smooth Criminal music video. Oh. Most people only know the dance hall sequence. That's the second act. The first and third act feature Joe Pesci as a bad guy. Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. Same thing. If you have the chance, look up Moonwalker, or at the very minimum, look up the full-length version of the Smooth Criminal music video. It is not just him dancing and leaning over really far. There's a whole thing with Joe Pesci being obsessed with spiders, trying to get kids hooked on drugs, and then Michael Jackson turns into a robot. Turns into a transformer. So he's like a big humanoid robot, and then becomes a fucking space jet. It's amazing.
How 80s is this?
It is.
This sounds
super
so
80s. It is super 80s. He is still black.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, it's magical. Like, you need to treat yourself and watch this. And while we're on it, watch Captain EO. Even if you can't go to Disney and see it like in glorious 3D with the lasers and the rumble seats and stuff like that, go on YouTube. There are people that have uploaded, I'm sure illegally, so I'm not saying do the things illegally, but if it's the only way you can watch it, I'm sorry Disney, but watch, and I'm sorry George Lucas because he had a hand in that. But watch Captain EO because it's magical. And I spent a day in Epcot Center watching it multiple times last summer.
Did they kick you out?
No. They were happy that someone came to it.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Because the theater was like half full every show, which that's not terrible, but it's good for a movie that's 20 plus years old.
All right.
Yeah. So What was your first collection, or what kickstarted your personal collection?
Well, I'd have to say, because after watching them a couple times at my friend's house, like, I don't know. I don't think he gave me anything. I think the only thing he gave me was the Fantasia VHS Collector's Edition, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I actually have the Collector's Edition Laserdisc.
Well, way to one up me, mister. But
we'll talk about that on a later episode.
All right. But so I had that, but like I didn't have any real Laserdisc. It wasn't until I went to a Japanese anime convention, Katsucon, that you've been to.
Yes.
In fact, you were there.
Was it the one?
Yeah.
It was the one that I was at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
because you pulled me over. You were like, "This guy has Laserdiscs.
Let's go." So I get there. I'm a part of staff there, and I found out beforehand on the staff Facebook that there was going to be a guy selling off his old anime collection there. So I said, all right, well, let's check it out. I mean, I could get a few anime titles. And then I noticed there was this huge selection of Laserdiscs. So I thought, this is the best way to start it out. And I go over there, and he's selling them for
pennies on the dollar.
Pennies on the dollar. Like, to give you an example, I got a box set of Evangelion, the end of Evangelion. And this thing's like $300 sealed, our price. So what I bought it from him was like $30. $30.
And from that guy, I got Terminator 2, the director's cut, for like $3.
Yeah, like this.
And I think Acura.
Acura?
Acura. The
That's
car.
not accurate.
Now I can't even say it because I'm laughing so hard.
You really can't.
Akira. Thank you. I couldn't.
A killer.
All I could think of was Tetsuo. I was like, yeah, but what does he say in response? Yeah, Akira. I bought that for like $3, and it's a really super. It's like a rare edition. Like I have friends on Twitter who are also Laserdisc collectors, and like every once in a while we bounce things off, and we're like, hey, I got this. Oh, I got this. And they were all like, oh, you got. Like it's like a first printing, and that's a big thing for like guys in like the book industry or like the book, literature hobbyists. Like, but it's like original printing, like the I want to say like it's the preferred voice actors.
Oh, right, because they re-release it on occasion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it has the ability to switch between Japanese dubbing and English dubbing.
Oh man, and that's what I love.
Which is another thing that's really cool about Laserdiscs.
Yeah,
because it was the first medium that you could do that with.
Exactly.
And it wasn't until I got Star Wars that I realized. And by the way, when I say Star Wars, I mean for anyone that really cares, it's the Star Wars Definitive Collection. So it's not just like, oh, I got the movie Star Wars, but it's actually like to get a little technical, like it's the CAV. High quality. It's 5 sides per movie, which I can get into if you'd like. There are two main schools of presentation, I guess you would say, for Laserdisc movies. You got CAV and CLV. Constant angular something and constant linear something.
Make it sound like we did homework for this.
Yeah, I know, right? But I mean, it doesn't really matter because CAV, it's like SPL. What the fuck does that stand for? Exactly. No one cares because that's a VHS thing. Yeah, exactly. But so CAV is the better quality. It's less compression, essentially, and it has something to do with the way that the laser hits the disc. We can get into it on a different episode where that's all we talk about if you guys really want to be bored out of your minds.
I mean, I'm on the edge of my seat right
now. But because of that, you also have less room on the disc because it's higher quality. It's more bits of data. You have to basically a CAV movie. You can put about 20 to 30 minutes of movie per side, whereas a CLV you can get 60 minutes. So a long movie, like a 2 hour and 10 minute long movie, like which I think is the average length of all 3 of the original Star Wars and probably all 6 of them at this point. That's 5 sides of a disc. So you have to flip. It's like a record for people that don't know. Like you have half the album on one side of the record, and then you got to flip it. You got the other half of the album on the other side of the record. Same thing with Laserdiscs.
Unless you're, one of those rich fellas and you can get the automatic double laser on each side.
That's that's one of the things that I want to get if if I make it big or something like that.
That or like a component out. Oh man, that would be nice.
Well, so interesting thing. As nice as that might be, or at least in your brain.
Yeah.
The data that's put on a LaserDisc only, is like they knew what quality they were working with. It's analog video, and it's only this many lines of resolution within the video file itself. File, like it's digital. It's not even digital. It's analog. But anyway, but like, so there's only that much video quality. So even if you have a CA disc or CAV disc, it's not actually going to look any better with component outputs than it would with composite outputs. Like there's the potentiality, like, okay, you have two streams.
Yeah.
The wider stream, the water is still going to potentially go down it faster, but you need more water for it to like actually make a visual difference.
All right, and I'll agree with that.
Yeah, or like a wide door, like if only one person is walking through the door, it doesn't matter how wide the door is.
Well, I mean, he'll feel comfortable. I'll feel comfortable.
Exactly. Emotionally,
yeah.
The person, or in this analogy, the video will feel better going through the door.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so the Star Wars is the definitive collection. It's only got 20 minutes of movie on either side, but it's really cool because I discovered the changing the different audio settings you can have, because another thing that was made popular with DVDs but pioneered, if I may, by LaserDiscs, commentary tracks.
Exactly.
And I found out that my LaserDisc player can it can access the commentary tracks on the Star Wars Definitive Collection, but I needed my remote in order to do it, because they're just like a DVD player. There's not all the buttons are represented on the face of the player itself. So I couldn't find my remote, so I had to buy a new, quote unquote, new remote from eBay just to be able to access this audio file that's not even on all the chapters. It's so weird on the Star Wars LaserDisc. When you listen to the audio commentary, there's no movie audio whatsoever. Yeah, they just cut out the movie audio, and the commentary is only on select tracks. So either you have to keep jumping back and forth so that you can hear the movie audio, or there's just 10-minute chunks where you don't hear anything.
That's so weird. Yeah, no, yeah. I've seen. It's
oddly enough, and the Clerks is like the exact opposite problem. They don't. I have the Clerks LaserDisc, and it's really cool because Kevin Smith loves LaserDiscs. But in the commentary, they don't drop the volume of the movie.
So they're talking over it.
So they're talking over it, but they're not talking loud enough for it to make a difference.
Oh my god. Oh my god. But yeah, no.
But so the guy at Katsucon.
Yeah, roundabout.
Yeah. Sorry, I got halfway through that story and I was like, I cut him off. So I was desperately trying to continually remember where I was or where you were, just so you could finish your thought.
Well, I mean, I guess the only really finishing part is I got the Ava collector's set, and that was crazy because Japan loves collectibles. So the special edition thing, $300 originally, had like a plushie, a model kit you could paint, booklets and storyboards, 2 discs, and it was awesome. So I got that.
Yeah, I love some of those special edition LaserDiscs. We can have a whole episode just on just some of the cool packaging that LaserDiscs have had in the past, because you got so many cool things with some of these things, and they're full. Because of the size of a LaserDisc, they're full like coffee table size books. Yeah,
you could just like, here, entertainment, read it, please.
You could kill someone with these books.
Death by a LaserDisc book. I mean, that's a way to have a little title in a newspaper there. But so I got that, and I got some other collector's editions. They had a couple of Japanese releases, but it was just a great like, hey, I love anime, and this is a new thing I want to get into. So it was a nice little starting point of getting all these anime movies. Yeah,
and it's actually great for fans of anime and just Japanese cinema in general, because the Japanese really loved LaserDiscs.
Oh my goodness!
Like it had its moments here in America, but in Japan they were still making Laserdiscs until 2003.
No, exactly. No, and that's why like when I was looking for,
We were here in America. We were struggling to like be like, come on, just let us put this movie out on Laserdisc in like '99.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and like the last one was printed in 2001, which I really want to get Sleepy Hollow, the Tim Burton Sleepy Hollow movie. That's one of two that you could argue is the final movie, because there were two that came out the same month, and I think they just kind of had like a any time during this month released. Like not a definitive day.
Mm-hmm.
Either that or they both came out on the same day. Like I was trying to do some research a little while ago and I couldn't find an exact thing, but it was like either Sleepy Hollow or this movie that I've never heard of.
Okay.
So I'm more apt to say Sleepy Hollow because I like that movie.
Yeah.
And I really want to get it. So if anyone is trying to sell Sleepy Hollow for less than like $30, because
that's the limit right there.
Well, as much as I love Laserdiscs, as much as I'm a collector, I'm still broke.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and that's what's great about being a Laserdisc
But
fan.
I will give you $30, and I will pay for shipping if you want to give me Sleepy Hollow.
You heard it here first,
Yeah,
ladies and gentlemen.
yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the thing that's great about being a Laserdisc fan is that you can get these things for like $7.
Yeah.
Like cheap money.
Mm-hmm.
Because like people don't want them.
Yeah, you pay more for shipping because these are like minimum like $5 shipping just because of how heavy they are.
Exactly.
Because they are. I will. One of the many downsides of Laserdiscs is that they are pretty fucking heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at least you pick it up and you're like, oh, good, this guy remembered to send me the video. It's not just the album art.
Well, I mean, that's half the price right there. I love like the art on these things.
Yeah, no, that's another thing that makes them so great. Like, my mom, she grew up in the time where vinyl records were like the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's like in the 90s, she used to be like, I hate CDs, not because of like some hipstery like, oh, when you listen to an album they're so warm, you can hear all the blah blah blah, not that
God.
crap. But she's like, they were just so cool. Like they were little bits of art. You could frame them and put them up on the wall.
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with Laserdiscs because the boxes are the same size.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to look at like the poster. Like it's squared off. So yeah, sure, it's not quite the one sheet that you get like with a movie theater poster, but it's still very pretty.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I honestly prefer them compared to like the VHSs because the VHS is in most cases cut off.
Yeah.
The Laserdisc siding. Like my Power Rangers. Oh, well, you have it too. The
Yeah.
Power Rangers movie Laserdisc.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the full kind of square. You can see the full team.
Yep.
Compared to like the VHS, which cuts it right at the edge.
Yeah,
of the
you
thing.
kind of see like the left eye and the right eye of the people on the edge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's
man.
also another Laserdisc that I have that has a little laser rot
Oh, that
in a
sucks.
random place too. Like I understand it being like on the end of a side or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of in the middle of one of the sides, right when they're getting their ninja power.
Mm-hmm.
Like not the with Dulcia, and like that little like ceremony thing, but like when they're fighting the when the things are actually like coming out, the crane is like hitting Tommy in the chest.
Oh, they haven't morphed yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after they fight the rock guards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I love that movie.
It's such a good movie. I have 2 of the Power Rangers autographs on that Laserdisc too.
You lucky duck.
Yeah, Billy and the Yellow Ranger.
Aisha.
I don't know why the Kira was popping in my head, and I was like, I know that's wrong. I don't even know where I got that.
Well,
Yeah.
you were talking about Akira earlier.
Yeah, sure. Now it's stuck in my head. Yeah, Aisha. They were both at Awesome Con. And then also Jason, the original Red Ranger, and Zach, the original Black Ranger, were there, but they weren't in that movie, so I wasn't about to be like, hey, you guys want to sign this movie that you weren't in?
Make you feel a little
Yeah,
awkward.
so I brought in my fan club VHS and had them sign those.
You're a classy guy.
I am. They were, all of them were like, whoa, you still have this? And I was like, hell yeah, bro. Grew up on this. And like Jason, I feel bad that I can't remember his real name.
Austin St. John.
Yeah, Austin St. John. I was
you could ask me,
Yeah.
the Power Ranger.
yeah,
guy.
right? The guy that has the Green Ranger shirt on right now.
Oh,
but like Austin St. John, he's a local guy. He grew up in Arlington.
Aw.
Yeah. And he still lives out here. So, it was cool. I got to.
Let's go stalk him.
We should.
Like right now.
Let's just stop the podcast. But yeah, so I chatted with him for a while about how it was really cool. When it first started, he was like my favorite Ranger. Then
Oh yeah.
off to the side, it became Tommy after a while. But don't tell him that.
I mean, he came back. When he came back as the Gold Ranger.
Mm-hmm. That was after I stopped watching.
You missed out on some quality footage.
I'm sure. But you're also the guy that watches the Super Sentai.
Oh yeah. Well, see, I watched that now. I didn't watch that back then.
Yeah.
I stayed with Power Rangers until I think in space.
Oh wow.
So
I stopped shortly after the first movie.
I can understand why.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that third season, they definitely needed to change things up.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're dealing with hey, we've got Japanese footage from the first season that we still have to use. It's a little tough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the season where you had the power ups of glitter armor.
Yeah.
It makes them faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh.
I could talk about that for a while.
Yeah, you could have your own Power Rangers podcast.
You should be on that.
Yeah.
I'll educate you.
I'll be your co-host.
I'll educate you, and you'll be like, "What does this mean?" Well, I'll tell you, sonny boy.
But yeah, so Laserdiscs are fun.
They are great. They're great.
And Laserdiscs were my first exposure to the Bond movies. Ooh. Because, like I said, I have more or less all of the Connery and more Bond movies on Laserdisc, and now I have also more recently I've added GoldenEye because classic Bond fans cover your ears, but that's gonna always be my favorite because that was technically my first Bond movie.
Them's fighting words right there.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Pierce Brosnan is your favorite Bond.
Worst movie ever.
Yeah, well, after watching a lot of the other Bonds, I'm like, why did they do this to the soundtrack? Like, it's got like a fucking like porn like wow 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 wow. It's super 90s.
Oh my god.
Which part of me loves, but part of me is like, why?
I've got a confession to make.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen any Bond films outside of Craig's.
Wow. Them's fighting words. Just don't let Sam hear that.
It's okay. I'll protect myself with my copy of N64 GoldenEye.
There you go. The second best first-person shooter on the N64.
Who's first?
Perfect Dark, because it's GoldenEye,
but with a woman.
+1.
But with a woman.
I mean, it's a perfected version of the GoldenEye engine. It's basically GoldenEye on different maps and slightly more developed because they added to it.
I guess if you want to say they did have the expansion pack then, and you had to have it.
Yeah.
Technical limitations then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, GoldenEye. Woo! You should watch it. You want to borrow my Laserdiscs?
Well, I'm already going to want to borrow those Michael Jackson ones.
Yeah, I will warn you. All of my original 10, plus the Michael Jackson ones, but not including Star Wars, did all get oil spilled on them at one point. It didn't ruin the discs, and it didn't really ruin the albums, but they smell like cooking oil and they're a little sticky.
A little sticky.
A little sticky because it had oil on them. I did my best. I did my best to clean them up, but basically I just replaced the plastic that the disc was sitting in, and then that was when I started getting obsessed with putting all my movies in plastic bags.
Just to protect them.
Yeah. Although in this particular instance probably would have made it worse because the oil spilled on top of it. So it would have just pooled inside the bags. So but still, like that, it started out as a way to protect my other Laserdiscs that I started buying from these, and now it's just me being cautious about the protection of the discs as they are.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to last forever.
Exactly.
That's the hard part about
this. Especially when you cover them in oil.
Oh my god.
But yeah, the another problem, and we can have a whole episode of the pros and cons of Laserdisc, I'm sure. But like another one of the problems with Laserdiscs is that they did have a lifespan. They had a shelf life that is a lot shorter than like DVDs. I think they still do better than VHSs and beta.
Well, yeah, because those would wear out.
Yeah.
Those would wear out. More
this
times
is
you watched it.
Laserdiscs. It's really just time versus environment, you know, but like not overplaying it. I don't think.
No, I don't think so. No, because it's a laser; it doesn't actually touch it.
Yeah, but like if you store it in something that's too hot, they'll warp the discs. If it's too damp, they'll mess up the discs, and that's probably what happened to my Blade Runner and my Power Rangers. They were all like that when I bought them. Yeah. But yeah, so I think I think we've hit a good spot for our first episode. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people?
No, I mean, well, you guys should come back. I
Yeah.
mean, this could be a thing.
Yeah, every couple weeks we're gonna have a new episode. If you haven't noticed, the way that we're doing these little side episodes on the Geek Out thing is every Friday is dedicated to one of our shows. So 2 weeks ago you got Jake's Lethal Weapon podcast. And last week you got Sam's Beatles podcast. And then this week you have my Laserdisc podcast. Next week you'll have something from Josh. Hopefully he hasn't come in to record it yet, but hopefully he gets around to doing it, and I'm not plugging something that's never going to happen.
You failed to deliver the content on time.
Yeah, exactly. It's not my fault. He's the one that's got to record it. It's just my studio. He knows when I have free time. But so that's us, and then I guess in another 4 weeks you'll get the second episode where we'll be talking about some of our prized possessions in our collections.
Oh man, I got a long list. How about you?
Oh, I do. We might just fill up the entire time just saying the titles and not talking about what's interesting about them at all.
Got it.
Exactly. So that's been LaserDicks with Chris
and Ken,
and thank you for coming by. That's not going to be the sign-off forever.